Well, the visuals that you're seeing right now are of the DA leader Mmusi Maimane speaking to Ma Adelaide, who was one of the people here in Sharpville who witnessed that massacre back on this day in 1960. He's also here to lay some wreaths with members of the Democratic Alliance here at the Sharpville Memorial. Just a few minutes earlier, we also saw other political parties, including the PAC and the ANC, who also came to lay wreaths here this morning. Certainly a day to be remembered by South Africans for the sacrifices that were made for South Africa to achieve the democracy that we now all enjoy as South Africans. Let me just speak to the DA leader, Mmusi Maimane, who's also here this morning. Mr. Maimane, thank you very much for your time this morning. I see you here with Mom Adelaide, who's one of the people who witnessed this tragic a day back in 1960. First of all, from the Democratic Alliance's point of view, obviously here to pay tribute.
Absolutely. It's a historic day in our country and in our nation. We dare never forget tragedies such as this one, because they remind us more critically that we should dare never live in a country that will violate people's rights, that we need to live in a reconciled society that stands and defends and honors the tribute that so many generations from the past have paid with their lives. And when I was speaking to Mmusi here, she was reminding us of the tragedy that befell her husband. It makes you realize that in fact this was a generation of South Africans who put South Africa first, understood what they were fighting for, and said we would even be willing to pay with our lives. And so today our struggle continues to say that this was a generation that played their part. The question before me and the question before everybody here today is, what part do we need to take in advancing the protection of rights of all South Africans, to making sure that their sacrifices are being honored by delivering for the people of South Africa and governing in such a way that their futures are protected, that we make sure that never and never again shall one have an opportunity to oppress another on the basis of race. And so today is a special and a very important day for us.
Mr. Maimane, one of the issues that I guess many people are reflecting on today, we talk about human rights issues, is the issue of racism. The issue of racism is certainly something that many South Africans are saying we should unite against, to fight. As the Democratic Alliance, your stance on, of course, tackling the issue relating to racism?
Racism is a global scourge. It's an evil that prevails still today in our society. And we must condemn, we must fight against it with every bit inside of us. I condemn all acts of racism, because racism not only dehumanizes the person who's the victim, but it also does the same to the perpetrator. But we mustn't stop there. We must proceed and say, what are the structural issues that produce inequality in our society? Why is it today that the plight of a black child is still 100 times more to end up in poverty than that of a white child? Why is it that in fact opportunities to get into universities are still skewed on the basis of race? Why is it that when we come to communities such as Sharpville, you discover that so many still live in such deep poverty and are without work? So when we talk about racism, we can't just stop at the act itself. We must deal with the structure of racism, the elements that perpetuate racism. But also, we must today, it being Human Rights Day, uphold the Constitution. Because the Constitution that gives rights to everybody. The Constitution says you have freedom of association, freedom to practice whatever religion, freedom to live where you choose to live. And so today, in many ways, must also be remembered as a protection of that Constitution. That's why when it takes place that we allow people like Bashir to live the country, we don't protect the Constitution. Our Constitution must reign supreme, because ultimately it guarantees the rights of all of us. And it reminds us that, as the preamble says, that South Africa will belong to all who live in it, black and white. And that's the nation we want to build. That's why I celebrate the DA today, because it represents a movement of South Africans who are from all different races. Who will stand
Mr.
up.
Maimane, I'm afraid I'm going to take this opportunity as well to speak to Mama Silo. Mama Silo, on a day like this, certainly must be difficult for you. It is 56 years later, but I'm sure those scars you still remember.
It reminds me back. I'm remembering my husband, and then my children. I was struggling to make them grow. It was very difficult for me. The children must grow without a father. It was difficult, but God is great. He has protected me. There was mercy on me. Everything that God needs to help me, it was there for me.
Thank you very much, Mama, for your time. The DA leader there, Mmusi Maimane, also here with Mama Silo. Mama Silo, of course, going back to what she remembers of this day back in 1960. Of course, all political parties are also here to lay wreaths as well, and also to pay tribute to those who were killed back then in 1960. But we'll go back to the studio right now, and we'll certainly bring you much more of what's happening in Sharpville a bit later on.